two systems of justice. Within hours of the events of the Capitol, January 6, our incoming President Kamala Harris saw fit to start scoring political points on a group of disaffected voters who most likely will not be much, if any, consideration during her presidency. Kamala Harris, who I must remind you dropped out before even Pete Buttigieg, was quoted as saying, "We witnessed two systems of justice when we saw one that let extremists storm the United States Capitol and another that released tear gas on peaceful protesters last summer. We know this is unacceptable. We should know better than this." I've got two problems with this. One, it completely ignores the reason those people stormed the Capitol on protest. And again, I must emphasize protest. And two, it compares the events again to the Floyd riots of the summer. One event being good and one being bad. Regardless of the whataboutism, we not only have our incoming POTUS excusing and praising the BLM riots, but doing so at the expense of the patriots in this country. No solidarity for Ashley Babbitt, completely ignoring what happened to her and the problems that drove the patriots to make their voices heard. Harris also claimed one of the fundamental principles upon which democracy rests as sacred as a civic value can be is fidelity to the rule of law. In times of civility, that principle can seem abstract in the way that she's going to reach the Oval Office eventually. She continues on to say how vital the rule of law is. How could she say this while claiming there are two systems of justice is beyond ludicrous. The lawlessness of the Floyd riots was something she's apparently okay with, as she promoted the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which was a program to pay the bail of protesters caught breaking the law. There's clearly two systems in this country. On that we can agree. One which will do absolutely anything for political power, a side which, as we can see now, is turning the gears on the next step of their plan, the widespread censorship of conservative voices in this country. Just a simple glance at the language being used in the mainstream media is revealing. Biden is quoted as saying, "No one can tell me that if it had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesting yesterday, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently than the mob of thugs that stormed the Capitol." We all know that's true, and it is unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. There's that strong language and the comparison again to the BLM riots. He called them thugs. I offer patriots instead. What happened on the 6th is about as close as it got to the famous quote by Thomas Jefferson. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. One of those patriots, Ashley Babbitt, lost her life during the protest. For the incoming would-be president, Joe Biden, I ask, was she a thug? Biden apparently also ignores history, claiming that the Capitol riots were darkest day in U.S. history, casting what I believe to be an overly dramatic light onto the events, considering what actually happened. And never mind Pearl Harbor or 9/11, Biden also claimed that the patriots who stormed the Capitol were domestic terrorists. I quote, "Don't dare call them protesters," Mr. Biden said in remarks from Wilmington, Delaware. "They were a riotous mob, insurrectionists, domestic terrorists. It's that basic. It's that simple." Mr. Biden blamed President Trump for inciting the violence, saying he had unleashed an all-out assault on our institutions of democracy. The White House did not immediately respond to requests for comment on the particular quote. Expect to see the words domestic terrorist a lot more frequently as we get ready for the conservative purge from social media. The word extremist is one that will come up often as well. The left does not want to earn your vote. They want to block you from voting conservative. Biden wants to make a priority of passing a law against domestic terrorism. Glenn Greenwald writes, "There's absolutely a new war on terror being initiated. It had been lurking for a while, but it's accelerating now for obvious reasons. This new one is aimed inward, domestically. It entails many of the same frameworks." They're saying it explicitly, and he quotes, "Mr. Biden has said he plans to make a priority of passing a law against domestic terrorism, and he has been urged to create a White House post overseeing the fight against ideologically inspired violent extremists and increasing funding to combat them." Combat them. That's an interesting word to use in this situation as we go back to the war on terror. Greenwald compares this to what he saw during the war on terror as news agencies and the media started to demonizing those against the war on terror as pro-terrorists, comparing the situation to the emotional heights following the events of 9/11, which in turn led to the Patriot Act. If the last few decades teach anything, it should be that making weighty decisions at times of high and intense emotions, closely following an event that unifies most everyone to the point that any deviations or questioning are treated like treason or heresy, is extremely unwise. The censorship seems to be just starting, with Tim Pool calling it the Great Purge. The Democrats do not want to fight for your vote. They want to outlaw it. CNN's Oliver Darcy is advocating for such a thing. It is time TV carriers face questions for lending their platforms to dishonest companies that profit off disinformation and conspiracy theories. Disinformation is another buzzword to watch as the legal push to outlaw your vote continues. Conspiracy theories, anything that attacks your ability to question, should be scrutinized. Journalism is a profession of asking questions, and you shouldn't need a license or face a litmus test of thought to be able to do so. Do not let them outlaw your vote. Don't let them turn the narrative against you for how you vote or think. You think it won't or can't happen to you? They did it to Trump. Facebook has banned Donald J. Trump from using their platform, citing how dangerous it could be. We believe the risks of allowing the president to continue posting to use our service during this period are simply too great, wrote Mark Zuckerberg. I ask, what kind of critical analysis went into your statement here, Mr. Zuckerberg? Do you have somebody that understands real physical threats? Is that part of your algorithmic research? If the Facebook guy has the ability to silence the president, what's to stop him from silencing me or you? They deleted several tweets of the president, and most incredibly his calls for patriots to go home during the protest. They'll stop at nothing in the name of safety. They'll call on a side to protest and ask you to pay the bail of those caught burning and looting while calling you a thought terrorist. Question everything. Don't let them outlaw your vote. And don't be ashamed of what you think. Fight back. Make your own videos. Question these narratives. It's going to get worse before it ever gets better. If it gets better. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next video.